Has to stay in control. The surprise pressure. Crawford again. Oh! Another big-time J. Runs a pick and roll with Clement.
All right, that is the greatest sports call in the history of calls, besides maybe when they say Chris Johnson's got getting away from the cop speed. Also, Gus Johnson there. But yeah, it's November. College basketball season is kind of, we're not going to call full swing, but we're in week one here. Got one of the best in the business as far as college basketball goes. And Siena's finest outside of Jerry McNamara leading his Siena Saints to hopefully a MAAC title and a tournament appearance. But Adam Trigger, let everybody know where they can find you. Let everybody know kind of your credentials and everything.
Yeah, college basketball handicapper, baseball handicapper. All of my stuff is at WagerTalk, wagertalk.com. And, you know, for me, anything Gus Johnson is great. If I had to throw one out there, my favorite college basketball call of all time, of course, has to be Onions Double Order by my guy, Bill Raftery, because that was my guy, Ronnie Moore, a friend of mine when we were at Siena. He was 2 years younger than me, but he used to come hang out. And those were the glory days for our program that hopefully GMAC gets us back to this year. I'm cautiously optimistic. This is probably as excited I've been for Siena basketball since Jalen Pickett last year, which had been like 2021. And we haven't made, we're kind of in the same boat with our schools where we haven't made the tournament since 2010. Kind of long overdue. Yeah. So looking forward to this year.
Well, hey, before we get into it, obviously on a personal note, lost my mother on Friday. So for all you guys out there that have dealt with the loss of a parent, obviously I know it's not easy. So just sounding board, you guys feel free to just mention me on Twitter. But a little story about my mom real fast. Adam, the only time I ever cursed in front of my mother, I'm 42 years old, right? Just lost her on Friday. So 42 years of my life. 2003, when Drew Nicholas hit that runner to beat UNC Wilmington in the first round, me and my boys all went up to UDL to visit my buddy. We're all crowded around in front of a TV because they didn't have DVR back then, right? Or you couldn't do the picture-in-picture. So they had the Indiana-Alabama game on, and they're just like updating the Maryland game. They're like, oh, close. I'm like, how about we fucking cut to the game, right? So Nicholas hits the shot. We all throw our beers up in the air. We're jumping up and down. My mom calls my cell phone. I'm like, Mom, I'm so fucking excited right now. And she goes, Marco Joseph. And I'm like, sorry, Mother, never again. I just hung up the phone. So she didn't call me for 3 days after we lost to Michigan State on that buzzer beater. So always been my biggest supporter. So not to get too emotional, but Mom, love you. And we'll get right back into it here. So we gave a little bit of a preview with the mentioning of the Siena Saints. We're going to get to the mascot game, which should be very, very interesting. Adam and I are going to go deep on some schools. You're not going to get us with like, oh, what's Seton Hall's mascot? You know what I mean? Like, we're getting deep here where people don't even know these schools. But, I think one of the biggest things that, obviously in the college basketball landscaping, just the overall transfer portal, but mainly this year, I've never seen so many coaching hires on the coaching carousel, whether you get like, Nico Medvedev going from, an upstart mid-major to Minnesota, same thing with McCollum, things like that. Talk about some of the coaching hires. I mean, who do you like? Who do you think is a little bit of a head scratcher? And I guess maybe who might be the most successful of them all year one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Nico Medved guy, so that's anywhere he goes is somewhere I'll be interested in. And I'll talk about that a little bit when we get into the sleeper pick. But I would say, for me, I'm in ACC country, so I live about 30 minutes outside of Syracuse. So if you want to talk about, if we were talking about next year's hire, it'll be whoever replaces Adrian Autry probably. Right. But this year, he still has a job, so we're not going to talk about that yet.
Not for long.
In terms of, but I'll go to the ACC because I think a couple of teams in the ACC have really upgraded their coaching situation. And the first one, I'll go with the obvious first. It's Will Wade.
Of course.
I think, having Will Wade at NC State takes that team from, I know they went to the Final Four 2 years ago. That was more of a, kind of Cinderella type run. But, just getting him in there puts them right back into the Final Four hunt, you could say, with the talent he brought in. And I just think that he's like one of the guys, you look at what he did at McNeese State in a short time and really what he's been able to do at every step of his career, just like program elevator day one. You just know you have a contender with him there. The one that I think, though, was kind of gone under the radar a little bit in terms of just like a home run hire is Ryan Odom at Virginia.
Yep. I've talked about him on a previous podcast. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I guess we have the, I wore my Navy zip up to
I
stay
saw that.
in the sort of Maryland, DMV theme. And you've got Ryan Odom, but you also get Griff Aldrich to come with him, right? So high school teammates, I believe, at like Hamden Sydney, a D3 school.
Okay.
I believe Aldrich was on the staff still when he beat Virginia with UMBC, another Baltimore-based team that I think is going to be pretty good this year. And he leaves Longwood, where he was super successful as a head coach, to be the associate head coach with his boy Odom. I believe they were teammates, friends. They've worked together. But why I think that's so intriguing to me is he's also a businessman. He's an attorney. He's a lawyer. He's a CFO. He's run successful businesses. And in this day and age, when you're talking about college sports, at the big time level, coaching is as much of a business as it is like, hey, I'm going to be the coach, X's and O's. I think that's why you're seeing guys like Tony Bennett retire, and some of the we've kind of had a line of like these Hall of Fame caliber coaches retire over the last couple of years. And I think it's because of the NIL transfer portal sort of business aspect that they're just like, yeah, that's not what I really signed up for. And so for Odom to bring him in, and again, I don't know this for sure, but I'm sure that Aldrich is going to be the guy that probably handles more of the business side of stuff, probably lets Odom coach a little bit more. And then you talk about Ryan Odom has had success, obviously the great run at UMBC. And then, of course, with VCU, always having good teams there. I think he's going to have Virginia right back into the mix. One of those two teams, I think, will press Duke at the top of that league this year, or Duke or North Carolina, whoever you're or Louisville, right? Those are the kind of the three teams that everyone likes. Don't count out Virginia or NC State. I really like both of those teams, and it's because of their new coaches.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, you brought up a great point with the ACC. I mean, we saw historic Hall of Fame coaches leave that conference, and there were a couple of young upstarts, but now I think you're getting at the glory days of kind of these young hotshot upstarts. I'm not going to consider Ryan Odom young because he's had success, but not necessarily the track record of a, who left there. And you also have a Jai Lucas going to Miami and things like that. So I think this is the inflection or infusion that the ACC needed to kind of get back there. And as a Maryland fan, always been an ACC guy, the Maryland-Virginia rivalry.
Sure.
I actually tried to look up tickets to Maryland-Virginia. Adam and I tried to buy them through the Virginia website, and they had all these other ACC games listed and a couple non-con games. So I call up and I'm like, hey, where's the Maryland game? And she's like, oh, Maryland is in the ACC, so those games are only available to season ticket holders. And I, was like, obviously we're in the Big Ten, but you have 6 other ACC games listed. So This is how I know that Maryland still has arrived and has some clout. We're in the package with like Duke and North Carolina, where they don't want opposing fans to get there, so only season ticket holders get those games. So kind of made me feel good as a Maryland fan that it's like they think enough of us to put us in a package where they don't want Maryland fans there. But you're exactly right. The guy, I mean, at UMBC was just unbelievable, and that should be a hell of a game with Maryland and Virginia. There's a great pools, and if Will Wade now leaves a bag of cash on someone's doorstep, it won't get him in trouble. So NC State could be, I think, a Final Four team within a year or two, and it's all because of that guy. So any that you kind of are scratching your head on, or maybe don't like, or you're questioning if year one it'll work out.
No, not so much that. Like I try to give the newcomers. It's hard to everyone hires a coach, and I think when it's your program, like I always remember the Mitch Bonaguro hire for Siena after Fran left for Iowa, or when we recycled Jimmy Patsos, who's a Maryland guy. Although I always liked Patsos, and I used to see him out and about. He's a good guy,
of course.
But like in terms of like, I think when it's not like your program or you're not like sort of in it, it's hard to like see a new hire and be like, I try to give them all the benefit of the doubt. I'll tell you one that I thought flew under the radar, and I didn't even really like make this sort of. I guess I'll make this point after their first game, but so you talked about Nico Medved going to Minnesota, another guy that I like, and I think some of these guys are great coaches, and they take jobs that are very difficult and hard to succeed. So that's another sort of piece of it. But his replacement at Colorado State, Ali Farokhmanesh, of course, if you are our age, because I'll be 40 in July, so we're roughly the same age. Ali Farokhmanesh, Northern Iowa, the great shot to beat Kansas is a highlight that's like burned into your brain pretty much forever. He has, I guess, been widely regarded as a very, like, one of the top assistants in college basketball over the last couple of years. And for me, a guy that's always like Medved, you know, obviously it's hard to do it all by yourself. Typically, if you are as good as Medved has been for that long, right? It's 6 or so years at Colorado State, always sort of overachieving with that program. There's probably someone else that's helping you do that. And it seems like Farokhmanesh was his top recruiter. Just by all accounts, a great assistant coach. You know, he gets credit for some of the scheming they do in the floor spacing. And then, you know, I watched every bit of that Colorado State Incarnate Word game on Monday. Reason being, I was on Incarnate Word for a small bet, and I had, you know, the 12.5, and I got a good number. And that's a team that I'm quite high on this year. And Colorado State blew their doors off. And that's an Incarnate Word team that I think could contend a little bit. They're going to push McNeese at the top of the Southland. And so for me to see Colorado State on day one, you lose Nick Clifford, so you lose the best player that you've had for a couple of years. And the roster, to me, on paper, didn't just jump off the page as like, okay, this is something you can have success with right away. I mean, for a night one, now it's only one game. That was really impressive. And he's got me drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit more than I maybe was coming into the season. So I think that one, and just to add one more sort of layer to that, there are some Mountain West teams that have not looked very good to this point. Boise State being one of them. Fresno State lost to USC Upstate. There was another one that had a very questionable result. Who knows? Maybe he could sneak back in there with that team, but I know there's not a lot of people out there that have Colorado State sort of in the mix again this year. But after seeing, you know, it's only one game, but again, that would be one that sort of I thought was an under the radar type move that might actually work out.
Yeah, I mean, we try not to have all the Maryland tie-ins here, but, you know, if it wasn't for Corey Lucius, Maryland plays Ali Farokhmanesh in the Sweet 16 that year, and, you know, God forbid Maryland wins and goes to the Final Four, and Grievous Vasquez even cements his legacy even more as an all-time Maryland great. So, and then obviously the buzzer beater against Colorado State for Derek Queen last year to basically send Nico to a much bigger job there. But we've seen the Mountain West just be an awesome conference, with San Diego State obviously making it, you know, that run a couple of years ago, and just the overall quality of basketball that comes out of there. So it's really interesting that you mentioned them, and that is a very under the radar job and coaching performance there. So to pivot a little bit here, obviously with the coach generally comes the player. You know, they might bring so-and-so with them. With the transfer portal now, we were talking earlier, we'll get into it with Maryland having 15 new players on there. How does that change you as a handicapper or better? I mean, you're used to a summer of research and a summer of, okay, I know this coach's tendencies. I know this team. This player is a year older in the system. How has everything completely changed? And does it change, A, your handicapping, and B, how you bet early season college basketball?
I'll answer the second question first. Yeah, it's 100% changed. 15, I started doing this where I had a site. And so before I was at Wager Talk, I had my own site, and I started the website back in 2012. Started betting back in like middle school, but, you know, started actually, I graduated from Siena in 2008 and tried to have a real job for a while. Hated it. All I wanted to do was bet sports. Wasn't really conducive to, you know, actually being productive at work. So I eventually said, well, let's just do this for work until someone pays me to do it. And I was writing analysis for a different guy, and then said, well, this is stupid. I'm writing the analysis. He's selling it and he's getting paid. I should just be doing this for myself. Started my own website, and the rest is history. But if I go back to then, 2010, even 2010, 2011, like college basketball for me was always come in ready to rock November, December, make your money, and then just like hope you can sort of at least just chill the rest of the year, where it's like you're not losing from that point on. Because, you know, once conference play comes around, and I think at that point in time I was still probably focused more on like a lot of novice bettors. Like I thought I was like a pro when I was like 20 something, but really in hindsight, I was clueless like everyone else. And I think what I was doing was, because I was focusing on some of the bigger leagues and so on and so forth, that's why I was struggling in January, February, March, not necessarily struggling, but having a hard time like making profit, because by that time, those leagues, it's going to be tough to beat the books on like a big time ACC game or a big time Big 12 game. So, could be prepared, could always come into November and December and kill it just by having like, sort of superior knowledge of like what the team was bringing back, so on and so forth. It just doesn't work like that anymore. Case in point, last night, I made 2 bets that I really liked a lot. I had Tarleton State plus 18.5. That game went off 15.5. So I had 3 points of closing value on the number. Gotta love that. And then Rider plus 20 closed 18.5. So here I am thinking like, okay, I made 2 really good bets. I beat each number by like a couple points. That's great. And it's like, as soon as you have to almost say like, okay, you have to almost say to yourself, like, the process was good. Those 2 bets were good, but like it's week 1 right now. And the range of outcomes is going to be so incredibly wide, because like, even if you're evaluating the market correctly, a lot of times, and I'll tie this in to Maryland, and maybe we can kind of talk Maryland quick and go back to the other part of the question, but it's like, how do you truly assess a team that has a new coach and an entirely new roster, and then actually like bet on that? You know what I'm saying? And now, and it used to be, okay, there was one team here, one team there. Now it's most of the country.
Right.
And it makes it so challenging to bet this. And I think the answer is for a bettor, got to tread lightly early, and you have to take things a little bit more at face value than you used to. And so for me, like, I kind of talked Colorado State. Well, I bet against them on Monday. I watched 40 minutes of very good basketball. My opinion is going to change off of that game. Whereas like maybe 10, 15 years ago, I'd be like, hey, it's one game. But now I start to trust what I see a little bit early more, because you don't really have the sample set to go off. So that's kind of just how I'm looking at it. And, just grind it out. It's good. It's tougher. It's far tougher early on November and December than it used to be. I find the sweet spot now to be like the start of conference play is really when I try to ramp it up from like a unit size and sort of just going after it. I think that's where my biggest edge is.
And I'm glad that you brought up that point too, because what makes a successful handicapper, and certainly I'm a novice bettor, with great sports knowledge, but you see too many people that are like, this is my model, this is my system, I fade the public. You have to adjust. If the eye test tells you that team's good and the public's all over them and they're good, bet them. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather be right and with the public than wrong and say, oh, my number was the right side. Well, it wasn't, because you didn't necessarily hit the bet. So the fact that you're willing to pivot there is good. And yeah, it's very, very interesting too, with, like you said, seeing the shift in there. And then, conference play is now, okay, we have more of an established this and that. I mean, look at last year, how many teams were number 1, right? I mean, you had Tennessee up there at number 1. And then, I mean, while the core 4 of teams that could win the national title was a lot shorter once you got in the tournament, you had so much. Once Alabama hit number 1, then they lose. Auburn hits number 1, then they lose. It was a lot of that going on. And I bet you a lot of bettors like yourself probably were ahead of those trends, knowing those spots in addition to, what you had kind of seen all year. So excellent point that you brought up there. So I guess, did you want to talk Maryland, or you want to go right into the mid-major top 5?
I to be honest with you, again, I don't have a ton more to say about Maryland other than I think, I think what excites me most about them is Buzz Williams. That would be, to me, when I look at the roster, I say, okay, like, it's an interesting collection of players. I think me and anyone else is just waiting to see, like, hey, like, let's see how they look together, how they play together. But the one constant is a guy that's had success pretty much wherever he's gone. And I think you can at least trust that the program's in good hands with a guy like Buzz Williams. So that would be, if I'm a Maryland fan, that would be where I'm optimistic. And then I'm obviously going to look, I'll watch Maryland and say, I want to see them sort of do what Texas A&M did well, because like Texas A&M was always a very reliable team when they were playing the right way and when they were, out rebounding teams. I know it's like a
Mhm.
big sticking point for him, and the just getting shots up at a high rate and then going to get those rebounds. So it's like as soon as Maryland starts to look like that, but if they're not priced like that, because that was the thing with Texas A&M last year was they started to get priced like this very, very elite option. And I don't think they were necessarily that. Where I'm interested to see Maryland is like, when do they start looking like that Buzz Williams types team? But like, where are they in the market? Because right now I would say, they're probably in the middle of the pack in terms of like a pricing standpoint in the Big Ten. They might actually be a team you get some value on, because I don't think anyone really knows how to price them to this point.
It's funny that you brought it up. One, I am going to make you make a pick later in the day, because I will be at that game, and I'm going to need, I'm going to need to make a wager on it. So I'm going to trust your
Fair enough.
expertise here. No pressure on you. But two, I said the exact same thing to my dad. I'm like, this guy is a good rebounder, banger. Like my best friend Jeff White loves ugly, ugly, ugly basketball. I'm going to be with him at the game. He wants a 50-point game. He wants those 50-47 barn burners. To see a Buzz Williams team, first game of the year, granted it was against Coppin State, put up in the 80s, and kind of, I think maybe we only out rebounded them by 1 or 2, was very, very interesting. And the Georgetown game, I think they could shift back to a little bit of banging, but maybe Buzz adjusts it. Maybe he's got some scores. Yep. So very interesting point that you kind of brought up there. And the market adjusting accordingly is something that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to betting. It's like, hey, is this team just not getting the respect, or are they getting too much respect? So, I'll make you make a pick on the game later, but we'll pivot over to, I know something they have a lot of thoughts on is a mid-major top 5 here, and we mentioned the Mountain West a little bit. And just a little precursor here, I do not consider Gonzaga a mid-major. I know they are in the West, or whatever conference they're in is a mid-major conference. They're not a mid-major, so they're not allowed to be obviously in your mid-major top 5. But whether you want to go 5 through 1, or however you want to do it, if you got your 5 best mid-major teams to watch this year.
I am with you on that, and it's like something that really bothers me as a Siena guy. So it's like, like those, you're right. Gonzaga, San Diego State, like even like A10 teams.
Yeah.
Those are not mid-major teams. They're
right.
They're not the power conference teams. There almost needs to be like another tier. And it's like, okay, if you want to call them mid-majors because they're not like the power conference teams, then we need like low major to be a thing, because it's not like comparing like the MAC or like even the Coastal, which is where Towson is like unfair to compare them to like the A10.
The A10 is a perfect example. Yeah.
Right. The Mountain West, the WCC. Like it's just unfair. That's an unfair comparison. So for me, I went more with a low major top 25 to an extent. Now, I think now that, so I'm going to throw Grand Canyon out here, because they're a team, like we talked about the Mountain West, and I'm with you. I'm over, like the Mountain West is not a mid-major conference, but I still think Grand Canyon kind of, they're transitioning into the league. They're coming from the WAC. I'm still cool with Grand Canyon being called a mid-major for at least another year or two. That's a team I think could win that league. San Diego State is the clear choice in that league. But I start to see, I'm going to go to my Mountain West rankings here, and it's like the team I had as kind of second, like if I had to pick a team to be second from a power rating standpoint, was Boise State. Now, again, I don't think their season is over by any means, but that was a really bad loss on Monday night. And it's like, some of these other teams, New Mexico, I thought you want to go back to coaching hires for a second. Eric Olin is going to be great. I think two things, like Maryland robbed us of seeing Colorado State, but we really, as a country, got robbed of seeing UC San Diego play at least one more game in the tournament. It was like kind of like an off night for them in that game against Michigan, and they still like were a shot away from winning. But like what Eric Olin did at UC San Diego was so impressive, and leading the country in metrics that like a team from the Big West probably is not supposed to lead in. And so to see him at New Mexico, I think it's a very interesting fit. That's, we were talking off air about like great college basketball atmospheres. The Pit is easily one of the coolest venues I've been to date. They were also awesome to me. I know you like Donovan Dent in the player market, and I got to sort of meet him for 2 seconds last year, which is really more just giving him a fist pound, telling him to go out there and kill it, which he did pretty much every night he stepped on the floor. But yeah, that's, I'm just looking up and down this league, and it's like UNLV has the bad loss to Texas UT Martin, and it's like, why not Grand Canyon? Bryce Drew's a tremendous coach. He's got, again, he's been really good at just like getting different guys in there year in and year out. Guy in they have the transfer. I think he was from Brown that was hurt for a year. Just a group of players that I think could be pretty good. And then you talk about just, the rest of the league, like it's San Diego State's to lose, but like I that's one that to me comes off as kind of a sleeper. So I'll start there. And I'm not going to go that. I'll just kind of read off the rest of my top 5. But I wanted to elaborate for a second on Grand Canyon because I think that's the one market that people can probably still get down on pretty easy. Would be like, I think if you wanted to bet like take a flyer on Grand Canyon to win the Mountain West, I think that's a really good bet. Now I like all of these as well, but these are in much smaller leagues. So this is more where I get more to like a mid to low major top 5. I threw Illinois State in there. I'll be interested to see the Redbirds tonight against Ohio. I think that's going to be a great game. Appointment television if you are a mid-major fan. That's Illinois State on the road in Athens, Ohio against a pretty good Bobcats team.
I did not have them on my list of questions to ask you, by the way, for mascots. I figured you knew the Redbirds, so I did not have them on my list to ask you. So. Yeah,
so the Illinois State-Ohio game is one I'll be interested in tonight. They're on my list. UC Irvine, I think, could be really, really good this year. They, just experience, a coach that's always got them in the mix. And, the team that really, Irvine's been like the stalwart in that league, and they kind of got overshadowed a little bit by UC San Diego last year. I would almost say they kind of deserve to also be in as well. But they went and I believe had a deep run. I think they went to the final of the NIT where they eventually lost. So Irvine could be pretty good. High Point, the Panthers. Not what I'm going to ask you now because I just said it. But the High Point University on Monday comes out. They lose their coach to Creighton. He's now going to be the next Creighton coach, although he's kind of the coach in waiting with McDermott this year. That's an interesting, guy. He's a younger guy. Flynn Clayman comes out, trashes Furman on Monday. Just a total. That was a game that a lot of people had circled as like what was going to be a really good game. Total blowout. I think High Point, their mix of talent's very interesting. I think they're right back in the mix this year in that mid-major, just for the top mid-major teams. And then I'll throw St. Thomas out there. I know they lost to St. Mary's, but that is not a bad loss. And that was not a game. They were a 13-point underdog in that game. And again, this is where it goes back to like, is St. Mary's even really a mid-major at this point? Like, yes, because they play in a small gym, but the WCC is in that same mix as A10, Mountain West. So again, I'm not going to really ding St. Thomas too much for losing that game. I still think that they're going to have a great season, and they're the team I like in the Summit. So I don't know if I have a particular order there, but those are 5 mid-major teams that I'm really sort of watching, closely in the early going.
We'll talk about a team that kind of ripped my heart out, and you mentioned it earlier. I believe 1990 was the last time we made the NCAA tournament. While I am decked out in Maryland gear and a diehard Maryland fan, I am a Towson Tiger alum, formerly Towson State. You might know them as. Lost to the 12th seed in the conference semifinals last year when Delaware made that incredible run where they couldn't miss a 3 to save their life. Seems to be Pat Scary's MO is, have a couple good teams and not make the NCAA tournament. Is this Towson's year? Do they win the regular season, and can they make it to the NCAA tournament?
Absolutely. I mean, they have, and this is where I think this is the difference, right? Like the A10, the Mountain West, the WCC, if you have a good year in those leagues, like you're going to go to the NCAA tournament most likely. Whereas like what you and I deal with as fans of our alma maters, it's like, we're essentially in one bid leagues. The right. Colonial, the Coastal, I would say is probably a step up from the MAC, the MAAC. Although the MAC is starting to improve. I would say this year is probably one of the best MAC conferences we've had in a while. But Towson last year, had a great season, and it's like it's all going to come down to those 4 days in DC or wherever your tournament is, Richmond, wherever you guys are having it these days.
It was in DC, yeah.
DC, yeah. Again, when you look at the Coastal this year, I think it's probably a 3-horse race realistically. Wilmington seemed to go the Charleston route last year, where it's like they tried to assemble an all-star team of Coastal players that weren't on their team last year, right? Like they went in-house in conference and was like, hey, we'll take the best player from your team. We'll take the best player from your team. I prefer Pat Scarry and the returning guys, even though they lost a couple guys from last year. I think, having it's Tejada and Williamson, I believe, that are back. Like, if you were making me pick between those two teams, and I'm not going to rule out Charleston, but I don't know that Charleston's all the way back yet, because they still, I didn't love that team last year, and then they lose Daywell Tavares and some other guys. So for me, I think it's between Wilmington and Towson. And then I think Charleston's someone you got to respect, but I'm still not fully in on them just yet. I think if you pin me down, I think I'd go with Towson just because of the having your two best players back, and then the fact that they bring in the kid from Wright State, who I think could be interesting. Got to move the ball more. That was their undoing last year. It's just they relied on too much shot making from their best players, and there wasn't enough ball movement. I feel like that's how you get upset by a team by Delaware, right? If they can improve upon that and have a little bit more fluidity in the offense, I think Towson very well might be the team to beat. And I cannot wait to see what they do against Houston this week. And that's going to be very, very interesting to see if they can even hang around in that game.
It's almost like I'd rather us be the 3 or the 4 seed heading into the CA tournament, because it seems like you're playing with less pressure and less house money, like you said, in the one bid league. It's like you knew they were going to get tight when they were playing the 12 seed there. As soon as I saw Delaware win that game, I'm like, Towson's losing. I would rather play the better team there. And like you said, and we could still call them the Colonial because the Coastal is a stupid name. But I mean, we remember the CA. I mean, VCU and George Mason both making it to the Final Four from that conference. Old Dominion had some good runs. I mean, UNC Wilmington, the Brent Blizzard teams. I mean, it was a good mid-major conference that has taken a step back.
They lost all their brands. They lost a lot of their top teams. It's tough. If you just think about the Horizon has gone through something similar where, they used to have Butler in there, Loyola Chicago. It's tough, man. That's one thing that I guess conference like the MAC, the other MAC, the MAC, it's like they've been able to sort of keep the same league for a while, but I mean, when you're constantly getting your top teams poached, it's really actually impressive that the Missouri Valley has been able to stay so relevant in terms of at the top of the mid-major leagues, because of course they lost Creighton, they lose Wichita State, and yet they still seem to be a league that could potentially put 2 teams into the NCAA tournament. So it's unfortunately college basketball has it's tough on the little guy now. And as fans of a team like Towson, or in my case, Siena, who I think has a very, very strong team this year and could win that league, it comes down to those 3-4 days in March. If you don't have it and you lose one game against a team like Delaware, it derails your season. That's unfortunate, but it's the world that we live in, of course.
Yeah. People forget that VCU actually was an at-large bid that year that they went to the Final Four, and they were in the first 4, and not a lot of people thought they should have been in there. So we do have a little bit of limited time here, so I want to make sure that we get to the mascot game, so I'm bumping that up now. So for those of you who don't know, as a 42-year-old man, I'm single, obviously no women. My number one talent is identifying college mascots. It's probably why I'm single. It's a great talent that guys always just throw out. People at the bars are like, oh, look at this guy. And, the women don't love it as much. So we'll see. But so Adam and I are going to go back and forth here. We're going to, give each other 5. We have no idea who each other's asking. Okay. So, and I guess we'll give each other 10, 15 seconds, kind of just, one guess, maybe 2, depending on how hard it is. But as my guest, do you want to ask me first, or would you like me to ask you first?
I You can ask me first. I'll let you be the home team. You can bat last
Okay.
if
So
you will.
I have a big list here of a lot of them. So
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
just a matter of,
I have like 7 or 8 that like, I figured I didn't know how many we'd get to, but you told me not to take it easy. So I feel like I'm bringing my A game in terms of asking.
okay.
You know,
Well,
I'll see if I can get any of these, but yeah, I think I picked some tough ones. So I'm interested to see. I'm excited to play.
we could go past 5 if need be too, but so I'm going to go with a very very good one that I like. The University of Texas at Rio Grande. What is their mascot? UT Rio Grande.
UT Rio Grande is the Vaqueros.
Yes.
And I just went back and forth with someone on UT Rio Grande Twitter the other day because I did a breakdown of their game with Baylor. So yeah, they are the Vaqueros.
There you go.
That's a good one.
Okay.
I
Well done.
thought about asking you that one. That was on my very long list. All right, I'll stay out. I got to go to this place last year, Flagstaff, Arizona, Northern Arizona.
They're the Lumberjacks.
They are playing the walk-up Sky Dome, and that was it was cool to see another team playing a dome. I obviously go to Syracuse games all the time. I'd never seen another team play in the dome. They have a better dome setup for hoop than Syracuse does. But yes, correct. Lumberjacks it is.
Okay, that one was going to make my list, but I kind of figured you knew that one. So this is a newer team to Division One because when I was like, I did have to go back and refresh. I'm like, who's in even which conference? The University of Southern Indiana. What is their mascot?
I believe they're the Screaming Eagles.
Yes, they are. Wow, that's a deep one. Deep. I think they're only in like year 4 or 5. Like I don't remember them from a few years ago in there. So excellent pool there.
All right, I got one for you that's also a newer one. I think they're right around the same thing. And like I believe they're in year 4, year 5. I know they are eligible for the tournament this year. And I picked this one because when I went to Siena, but I probably would have went to this school if they gave me even a little bit of financial aid. They basically were like, no, you can pay full price. And I was like, yeah, can't afford that. I'll take the little bit of money that Siena gave me. So Stonehill.
Oh God. Okay. I looked up. I was like between them and Mercyhurst. I know are newer. God.
Same conference.
Yeah. Mercyhurst is the Lakers. Stonehill. They are. I actually don't know. I'm picturing their mascot. I looked it up and then I forgot. Or they're not. Siena's the Saints. Stonehill. I'll just go with the Eagles.
The Stonehill Skyhawks. I was
Skyhawks.
like, if you that was, I should have held that one to the end. Like if you pulled Skyhawks, I would have said, all right, this is yeah, that's tough. They're only in like their 4th year, I believe, at the D1 level, but I do think this is the first year that they can go to the NCAA tournament. So
the whole Northeast Conference has shifted. That was one where I was going back and like refreshing my conferences. I'm like, oh my God, like I've never even heard of some of these schools. So I actually had another Skyhawks on there, so I'm crossing that one off to give to you. I was going to give you UT Martin, who you just mentioned. So this is a good one. We will go with the University of Cal Baptist.
They're the Lancers, and I know that
Yes.
because I'm going to a game there this year. With that's one of the places I'm going to be is on my list of like places I'm going this year is Cal Baptist. I'm hitting UC Riverside and Cal Baptist on the same day. They're literally 10 minutes apart. Both in Riverside, California.
Do you know another Lancers real fast?
Is it Longwood?
Yes, I was going to say they made the tournament when you were talking about them, the Longwood Lancers. Yeah.
Yes, I think they're different. I think Longwood's mascot is like a horse, and the Lancers of Cal Baptist are like someone that would have fought back in like the religious time. So yeah,
Right, okay.
I think they're slightly different Lancers, but yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna stay in that conference because the reason I get to go to a lot of WAC games and get credentialed is I have a very good friend at Tarleton State. So I'll ask you them. The Tarleton State is the one I'm going to ask.
They're the Texans.
They are the Texans. Yep, Tarleton State Texans. And yeah, I good friend of mine calls play-by-play for the basketball for the radio, and he helps me out when I want to go. That's how I got to go to Grand Canyon last year. And I think I'm going to go on the road trip with them. We're going to do Utah Valley and Cal Baptist. So in the same weekend.
There you go.
So looking forward to that.
Perfect. Okay. Well, let's see here. Okay, so I gave you a couple tough ones. So I'm going to go kind of a completely different conference here. You probably know this one, but Jerry Rice's alma mater, Mississippi Valley State.
They are the Delta Devils.
Yes, they are.
Right?
Yeah.
The Delta Devils, yeah. So it's funny that you bring them up. They never get home games. Like outside of their conference, they never get like D1 schools to come play them at home. And Tarleton is actually playing there this year. And was gonna try. It's like it just didn't work out to my schedule. I was going to try. I've always wanted to go to a game there, and I just thought it would like my friend Coleman actually went a couple years ago and said it's just it's a scene. So I want to get to them all at some point, and I was trying to work that into my schedule. It didn't work out, but it's hard for them to schedule. All those SWAC schools have a hard time scheduling non-conference home games against Division I opponents. They just don't. They need to go on the road and get their paycheck. So it's very rare that they get a home game like that outside of conference. But it is Tarleton that's going to go there, and I'll stay in that conference. In honor of this team almost knocking off Auburn last night, and they've got another high major game today. How about Bethune-Cookman?
Bethune-Cookman is the Wildcats.
They are the Wildcats. Yep. I thought I was going to stump you by just going with a standard, just a standard team name, but you got it. Yes, the Wildcats.
Yeah, and well, to touch on Mississippi Valley State too, that is why we see a lot of those schools like in some of those really, really small conferences where the number one seed, you look at their record and it's like, why is the number one seed 19 and 14 overall? It's like because they're going 0-11 to start the season.
Oh yeah,
and just playing, Coppin State one year played God knows how many ranked teams, and they were 0-10 to start the season. Prior to that, so. All right. Well, yeah, you're very good. I'm digging really, really deep here. This is one that I think you might get, but it's a phenomenal mascot, and I'm going to go with Stetson University.
Oh, the Hatters, right? The Stetson Hatters. Yeah,
yes.
Great mascot, and the old school logo from like when we were growing up is like, I almost think like better. It was like I think it was just like an S with now. I think they've like stylized it a little bit, so it's. I don't know, that their 90s logo is very plain. It was just like a straight up like block S with like a hat on it. I always thought that was in a basketball, I think.
Well, they had wasn't it a couple of years ago where they won their conference, but they couldn't go the conference tournament. They couldn't go to the NCAA tournament, right? So I believe the number 2 seed won. It might have been Morehead State last year or a couple of years ago.
So I think Stetson, yeah, it was that league, but I don't think it was them. It was
Oh, well, no, they're in the ASUN, right?
Yeah, it was, I believe Bellarmine was the team that ended up not being able to go. Stetson, I think, man, now I'm trying to, I feel like Stetson did go maybe a year or two ago, and then a lot of their players ended up getting, kind of leaving to go to bigger schools. I know the one kid ended up at Miami. But yeah, the ASUN is a little bit of a blind spot for me. I mean, Stetson, I've had, they've been around for a while, but yeah, it's tough. Some of these, as a bettor, you tend to focus on like, for me, it's like a lot of the Northeast conferences and stuff. And I would say the ASUN is a little bit of a blind spot for me in terms of like some of those teams. So
that's why I'm surprised that I went with like some West Coast conference teams, and I was like, or like the Western, and I'm like, he's a New Jersey guy, like a New York guy. Like, is he going to be able to get these? But obviously, the small conferences is what's there. So, okay, so you just went. So I will go with one more here. Now, this is a team that I think is in one of my favorite small conferences to bet, and it's the SoCon. We are going to go with Western Carolina.
Western Carolina, I'm trying to get them. This one should be easier than I'm making this harder than it is.
Think Taylor Coppenrath. Well,
Taylor Coppenrath was
What's
was
their
Vermont,
mascot?
right?
Yeah, what's Vermont's mascot?
Oh, the Catamounts.
Yes.
That's right. Oh, you got me. Yeah, so we're one to one stump. Yeah, I could see the cat-like, part of the mascot, and I went Panthers, which is like UNI has the same color, and they're the Panthers, and then my head went to Western Illinois, who is the Leathernecks, and I couldn't get out of the Catamounts. Good, that was a good one. That one, I feel like I should have got that one. I'm kicking myself for that one.
I also think Panthers is Wildcats. Obviously, I believe is number one for most teams with that, but Panthers is very underrated for number of schools that have Panthers as their mascot as well.
For sure.
It's like in the top 2 or 3. So,
all right, I got one for you.
All right, one more.
I got one for you. Let's go. How about St. Thomas?
They are the Tommies.
They are the Tommies.
Yes. So, and they're a newer Division I team as well, too, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
They again, they're tournament eligible for sure. I think they were maybe last year, but I think they have a real shot in the Summit this year. I think you could see them in the NCAA tournament.
And so just to let people know, we did not share any of these with anybody. I mean, I don't know. I know you're married, but, this is like it for me. You know what I mean? Is knowing these mascots. So, it's like I got to brush up a little bit on it, but and
that was good. That was a good battle. I feel like we battled to a draw. We each stumped each other once. I'll be kicking myself for the rest of the night for not. You'll never
forget it again. Like someone got me with Nebraska Omaha years ago, and I never forgot it. I'm like, how many Mavericks live in Omaha, Nebraska? I didn't think anything of it, and I'm like, so now that one's and so is Stonehill now, and I want them to make the tournament. But just random stuff. Like I watch games and I just kind of remember the mascots, and it's like with so much fluctuation in D1 there. I do think the MAAC, as you mentioned, has by far the best just collective group of mascot names between the Peacocks, the Jaspers, the Golden Griffins, the Gales, all of them. But obviously we couldn't give each other any of those.
That's right in my wheelhouse right there, the Max. So yeah.
Exactly. So last, I guess, 10 minutes that we have here, we'll go just kind of conference previews overall. So obviously, just kind of the power conferences, the favorites are all listed. Maybe give me one conference where you don't like the preseason betting favorite, whoever it is, to win that, and maybe give me a sleeper in however many conferences that you want to do. So just, I guess, pick the conference where you don't like the favorite, then give me a sleeper for that conference as well too.
Yeah, so I thought what I would do for this, I'm just going to go rattle off. I'll for the power leagues, I'll rattle off who my power rated favorite is coming into the season, and one where I think that could be beat. So again, my power rated favorite for each power conference is going to be Florida, Purdue, Houston. I have Houston with an edge over Texas Tech, although I'll get to that in a second. UConn and Duke. Those would be those are what my power ratings have as the favorite. Sleepers in each league, the SEC, I think the top is pretty even. Like I had to give it to Florida coming off of the, being the champs and in the fact that I really like Todd Golden, and it would have been hard to not put them one, but that's the league where, man, you're splitting hairs to basically be like, well, this team's better than Kentucky, is better than Alabama, is better than, Tennessee, Arkansas. I would say that's kind of after Arkansas, that's probably where the drop off a little bit in terms of teams I don't think that can win the league. I'll tell you this, I'm going to get to see Arkansas in person on Saturday. I will be in East Lansing for Michigan State, Arkansas on Saturday night. Looking forward to that. And I guess I'll throw Arkansas out as the sleeper. So if we're going to do SEC, obviously Florida's my power rated number one. My sleeper is Arkansas. For Big Ten, Purdue is everyone's power rated number one. And I know you've got some teams that you like in this league. Mm-hmm. My sleeper is going to be Iowa in the Big Ten. Okay. And the reason for that is I just am so high on Ben McCollum. And then the fact that he brings guys that he's accustomed to coaching with him from Drake. And I like the grab of Alvaro Fogares from Robert Morris. We saw him have a really good game against a big team in Alabama last year. And then Ben McCollum showed, hey, you think I'm like a defensive coach that runs the clock all the time? well, let me just drop 100 plus on Robert Morris. So I'll say I was my sleeper in there. I'll give you a chance to rebuttal on those two.
Yeah, I mean, the Big Ten absolutely scares me, but I've been prior to the season before the rankings came out, I was all over Michigan and Dusty May. I can never trust Matt Painter. I do think he has a lot coming back. Obviously, he did make the final. He did make the final game a couple of years ago, but I've seen too many Purdue teams not live up to the hype. The Jaden Ivey and Caleb Swanigan team that had no business losing to St. Peter's in that Sweet 16. So I really, really love Michigan, but two teams that I think could be, I guess, sleepers because I still think they'll make the tournament or could be good. But I really love Eric Musselman. I love obviously him getting Rodney Rice and USC. And then I really think just because they have Donovan Dent and Mick Cronin at the helm, I think UCLA is a team that I will put dark horse money on to go to the Final Four. Obviously, everything is dependent on draw there. But when you have a player that's good, that can just take over and be a Wooden Award, just between those two teams, I would actually, gun to my head, just best value out there. I love Michigan to win the national title. Just at the value that they're going on with that.
I mean, listen, you could make the same case for Dusty May at Michigan, like that I'm making for McCollum. Like you're just, you're just getting just such an elite coach, one of the absolute best in the game. Took Florida Atlantic to the Final Four.
Yep.
So that's all you really need to know right there, right? Like just an elite coach. And I think you can say the same thing. That's where it's like, I look at the Big 12 just to go to the next one, like who's just like, you've got Kelvin Sampson, you've got Grant McCasland with the teams that they have. How is another team winning that league? Like, you know what I'm saying? And I love, like, I want to be a BYU guy badly. I love like watching that team. And I think there's a ton of upside, but they're just not beating out one of those two teams in league play. Like so for me, there's no dark horse in the Big 12. It's Houston, it's Texas Tech. I'll be shocked if it's anyone else that wins that league.
And then anything on the Big East or?
Yeah. So the Big East is interesting because I want there to be like a dark horse pick here, but as I go down the list, it's like, and I don't want to like UConn because I'm getting sick of like, UConn just dominating this league every year, like, or at least they had the past couple of years, but really hard to believe that it's anyone other than UConn. They are my power rated number one in the league. I don't think it's going to be St. John's. That would be a team I might sell a little bit from winning this league this year. But unfortunately, the bottom of the of this league is a little bit rough. I think Georgetown could be an interesting sort of team to get themselves in the mix. I don't know if they can win, but
after
I certainly
they lose
think
Friday night, though, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, here's the thing, though. It's like, again, I like Ed Cooley. I've been a fan of Malik Mack ever since he was at Harvard. It'll be interesting to see how Langston Love fits in. He was a guy that I always thought should be better than he was at Baylor. So again, though, they are so far off of like a UConn in terms of like where I had them rated that like any team winning this league other than UConn or St. John's or maybe Creighton would be a very big surprise to me. So I think I mean, just for argument's sake, I'd prefer Creighton over St. John's, but it's hard to believe that it's not UConn.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the reason why you might have it as a little bit weaker this year is I think Marquette takes a significant step back. If Marquette was up where they were a couple of years ago with the Tyler Koleks and even how they were at the beginning of last year, just some of those games were just absolute bangers in there. But I do think that they take a step back, which then makes the league way more top heavy. Those three teams, like you said, yes, I prefer Creighton over St. John's as well, because to me, if you can't shoot, you're not going deep. And, as good as Patino is, we saw him get exposed in the tournament and, not putting your best player in there. That's another day. But I do love Rick Pitino, but you're exactly right. It's UConn's to lose. So.
Yeah, as far as the ACC is concerned, I mean, I love this Louisville team with Pat Kelsey, Duke. Duke was actually, I was really close to I'll probably update my power rankings after everyone plays like 2 games. And I may flip flop those. I'm pretty close to putting Louisville 1 over Duke. Like I Pat Kelsey, I'm very, very high on. I mean, you've got a chance to kind of watch Pat Kelsey up close in his years in the Coastal. And
yep.
like he's in turn, like I think he's just tremendous coach and like program builder, just to take them from what they were when he inherited them to like quickly where they are now. And then of course last year do it with like a slew of injuries is very, very impressive. And then I think you're going to have, I think you've got to throw NC State and Virginia in there as like, I don't really consider them sleepers. I guess I consider Virginia more of a sleeper than NC State, maybe just where people have them rated. But like, yeah, I think if you pin me down for a sleeper in the ACC, I would have to say Virginia. Like, I think they legitimately could win the league. Anyone else, I just don't think they, I did get a chance to watch SMU play on Monday. Thought they played look good, but there's just no scenario where I'm backing Andy Enfield to win a league ever. I think it's like you were saying you like USC. I think like I still am like traumatized USC wise because like he took so many good teams and like ended up not being very good with them. But SMU's got some guys, but no, I would say Virginia's got to be the only sleeper I'd probably sprinkle a few dollars on in the ACC.
Well, awesome. Well, of course, Maryland goes there in December for a non-conference game. So real quick, because I know you only have a few minutes. So obviously give me a Georgetown, Maryland pick, and then maybe 2 or 3 bets that you like this weekend.
Yeah, I'm trying to, let me just quickly, I'm going to try to make a quick number for that Georgetown, Maryland game, just to get a gauge. Because that's one where, Georgetown's interesting because I would say I'll have Maryland probably, and again I'm just kind of doing this on the fly, so don't pin me to the number here, but I probably like on a neutral, I've probably got Maryland like maybe like a 5-point favorite over Georgetown right now, so it'll be interesting to see what the line is. I think I expect Maryland to win, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Georgetown plays their way into a couple of good results. So just from picking the winner, not really knowing what the spread is going to be, I'll go Maryland to win that game. As far as a couple games I'm looking at for the weekend, I just I jotted. It's hard to do it without numbers and stuff, but like, well, I'll be so on Sunday or Saturday, I'm going to 2 games. I'm going to be at Marshall Toledo in the afternoon and Arkansas Michigan State at night.
Oh yeah.
And I really like this Marshall team. So I cashed with Marshall on Monday, opening night. They knocked off UMass as a 4.5-point underdog. They got a transfer from Elon, who's one of the few super COVID seniors left in college basketball, in Matthew Van Komen, who's also 7'4".
Oh wow.
Probably one of the few guys over 7 feet tall in college basketball. But I felt like he transformed Elon very quickly last year into a team that could play a very aggressive zone type defense. And, there's the coach there at Marshall is a guy that I think is like kind of like flying under the radar in terms of, I don't think he's getting enough attention for like being like a coach that like could go to a bigger program. And I think because of that, and just because of like, Marshall being in the Sun Belt, it's not a league that gets a ton of attention. I think they are very, very undervalued just across the board.
Okay.
They go into UMass on Monday. They win as a 4.5-point underdog. I wouldn't be surprised if they go into Toledo and win that game as well, where they will likely be a similar size underdog. Toledo lost to Southern Alabama on Monday. I just was not impressed at all with that Toledo team, and I've kind of got them much lower in that league than I usually do. I think they're kind of like, Toledo's always a team that's typically up there with the Akron, Kent State, Ohio. I don't think this is a year they're going to be up there. I kind of have them, much lower in that league than I think some others do. So I might look to play Marshall again in that game. And then I'll throw another one from a smaller league. Tarleton State opens their brand new facility on Saturday. And, they got crushed by LSU last night, but Dior Johnson only played 1 minute. Their big man got ejected from the game in the first half, should not have gotten thrown out of that game, but they get blown out. I think they started to look ahead a little bit to Saturday. It's going to be a big deal. It'll be sold out. It's their new building, 8,000 seats. Place looks incredible. I can't wait to go down and see it. And they play Texas A&M Corpus Christi. They should be favored, and I'll probably bet them at any, unless it's like egregious. I think I'll probably be playing Tarleton State on Saturday. So just a couple that I'm looking ahead to for the weekend.
Awesome. So where can people find you, whether it's on socials or any shows this weekend?
Absolutely. I run so I'm on Wager Talk. All of my stuff you can find on wagertalk.com. That's where you can get my picks. That's where every pick comes with extensive written analysis. And I do a live college basketball show with two of my colleagues every day, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. You can find that on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. And you can just go to my Twitter, which is at AdamTriggerWT. We stream it live to there as well. And my DMs are always open. If you have a question, hit me up on the DM. I'll always answer. If I've got anything actionable, I'll usually let you know. So Twitter DMs are a good place to find me as well.
And Adam, when I'm at Looney's pregame in College Park, I'll be letting everybody know that Adam Trigger says take the Terps -5, so that way you'll get a lot of hate mail if we do lose to Georgetown. No, I'm kidding. But
I will circle back once I have a number made and I've done my due diligence and let you know if I still think that. But I do think that they will be the better option if you're just looking at who wins that game. I think they'll have a nice little bit of an edge there.
Well, I appreciate the time. We'll have to do it again. And if you're ever in College Park, there is a adult beverage with your name on it on me. So we'll have to have one and talk some more college basketball and try to stump each other for some mascots again.
All right, man. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Take care. See ya.